It's about getting into schools and talking to young people because, you know, I know that people can change. And it's about talking to people and getting them to understand and perhaps step back from violence and prejudice and whatever. And we just need to work together and keep on the good fight there.
Absolutely. Hey there, guys. We are ecstatically happy to announce that we are associated with the Sophie Lancaster Foundation.
The times are changing, and with the unfortunate death of Sophie, those changes have made a massive impact for the future. If Sophie was with us still today, I can guarantee what you are doing will still be reaching so many lives of young teenagers, young adults, and those who wish to be as different as possible. So thank you very much.
To find out more about this incredible foundation and all the work they do, and more importantly, how you can help, head on over to www.sophielancasterfoundation.com.
Hey Jamie, do you like being cozy?
I do.
And do you like staying cozy?
I like that even more.
Then just heading over to www.staycozyclothing.com,
where you can find hoodies, tees, sweaters, and much, much more.
And just enter The Chronicles as one word at checkout to receive 10% off your order.
And make sure you follow them on the Instagram at Stay Cozy Clothing to keep up to date with all the new designs.
Remember, guys, that's The Chronicles as one word at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And now back to this week's episode.
Hi, I'm puppeteer Noel MacNeal. Once upon a time, I was a bear in a big blue house, but now I am proud to present the Chronicles of Podcast.
Blow your airbed up with my ass, boys. Welcome to hashtag WBW Way Back Wednesday. And these are the Chronicles of Noel MacNeal. I am so excited to release this interview. Why Noel this week, Jamie?
Well, there's a few reasons why Noel this week, Mr. Stevens. First off, this Friday's guest, Mike Moore, said one of his hobbies is puppeteering and making puppets. Is there any better man to work with puppets than Noel MacNeal? 2 days ago, the trailer for the next season of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver dropped. This man's excited. And of course, Noel works on that show. And do you know the other reason why we're putting this show out? Because it's possibly one of our favourite interviews we've ever done. We got to talk to Bear in the Big Blue House.
Noel was a genuinely lovely guy. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where we could have sat and chatted for hours because the stories he was telling us, just the conversation we're having is absolutely beautiful. He plugged his wife's book about 15 times.
That's so you can hear about him from the corner of the room.
Yeah. You better plug my book now.
Plug the book now.
Plug the book now.
Plug the fucking book.
But yeah, so it was just an absolutely wonderful interview. I had so much fun. When you booked him and I looked up and I was like, oh my days. The excitement running through was unbelievable because obviously Noel works, as Jamie said, on Last Week Tonight, which is probably one of my favourite shows, if not my favourite show ever. If no one's watched it, why? You're really missing out. But Noel has the privilege and the honour. The photo he put on Twitter of him sat at John's desk, and I was just like, oh my days, I'm so jealous right now. I want to sit there. This incredible. But yeah, Noel is just one of the... He also works on Sesame Street.
He did. He told us some amazing stories from his time on Sesame Street, amazing stories, and so much passion he has. Like in his voice, you can hear it for Bear and Bear in the Big Blue House. You know, the man loves what he does, and it's absolutely incredible. Oh, I love this so much.
And he also reads you some stories on Spotify that you can go and find and check out as well. I'm just very excited to get this out, Jamie. So, shall we?
Let's.
Jamie! any final words?
Noel, we love you. Everyone else, enjoy this interview because it's incredible.
No, thank you so much again for being a part of our show. It meant the absolute world. Like just a genuine pleasure, and obviously get to talk to somebody who I admire quite a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the Chronicles of Noel MacNeal. The
There
man
he is.
himself. Yeah.
Hello.
How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, Noel. I'm pretty tired. It's been a hell of a day. I went out last night because the Euros are on, and Scotland played England, and I know the accent gives it away, but I'm actually Scottish, and I stayed out quite late, and then I had to work all day today. So we're still going to be on my game, but I just thought I'd be honest with you.
That's fine. No worries. I know it's like after 8 o'clock at night now. So, yes. So,
It's early evening. It's okay. I should not be this tired at this time, to be fair.
Right. You'll get this out of the way, then you go back out, and then you'll celebrate some more.
How do you know my schedule?
Drown your sorrows. Yes.
But thank you so much for doing this. We really, really appreciate it.
Sure. No worries.
Really looking forward to this one.
I'm loving that shirt, by the way.
Oh yes, this is old school Banana Republic. I don't know if you had that store franchise in the UK, but this was a store franchise in the US. And like back in the 90s, it was kind of like I don't know, kind of like more tropical kind of theming and kind of, so it's like it's this shirt with like all these like sea creatures like all over it. So
That's amazing.
It's so cool.
That is amazing.
and this is like, it's over like, I think it's like 25 years old, but I only wear it like, during the summer. So it's held up. So it's like, I don't wear it all the time. And they scrapped that and became more like, like more just like basic kind of like shirt and tie and kind of stores. And they just dropped this, but it's like, yeah, it's one of my favorite summer shirts. So on the eve of summer, I thought I would like pull it out.
Beautiful. It is stunning.
So, I'm sorry to show off my very pretty mug, but if you really look at it,
That is so
That's
cool.
really clever and cool.
a gift from a really good friend. So it's like,
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah, it's
there you
beautiful.
go. Yeah,
It's
so
not the
like,
detail you expect when you first look at that.
I know. We
That's
just look at it, just like, oh, so pretty, and it's like Asian. And like, wait a minute, it's like,
Yeah.
is that Rodin? What? Yes.
So basically, Jamie is going to do a massive intro, and then we're going to absolutely bombard you with questions. How does that sound?
It's like, there we go.
beautiful. I'll get us started.
All right.
Ladies and gents, today we have with us a very special guest. This man has worked on so many incredible projects, including one of the most iconic kids' TV characters of the late 90s, early 2000s. He's an actor, a puppeteer, a writer, an author, and has done one of the greatest things you can do and brought smiles to children's faces all around the globe. Everybody, please welcome to Chronicles, the amazing and wonderful Noel MacNeal.
Hello, everybody out there.
Absolute pleasure to have you here, sir.
Thanks for tuning in. Now, the disclaimer with that really long intro, it's just telling you folks that he's old. He's been doing this a really long time. And now you're about to hear an old man babble about wiggling dolls and just sit back, hop over the Boddingtons, and we'll just get started.
Is Boddington still around?
I don't know. Is it? You tell me. I just it's like the last time I had it, I think it was like 1998 or so. I don't know.
I might have to investigate that because I used to really like, but I don't know why, but I used to really like it. I haven't seen it for a very long time.
Wow. Dag. Okay. Well, see, that's your next podcast. That's your next.
Yeah. Get the creator of Boddington's. Get the Boddington's
Exactly.
Brewery on here.
Tom's Boddington's Review.
Yes. Studs Chronicles.
Anyway, Noel, how's the last year been for you, my friend?
Well, let's see what has happened in the last year, or more accurately, what has not happened in the last year, because a whole of a heck of a lot has not happened. There was like so many plans that are going to happen. I've been doing a lot here in the States, and I was hoping to maybe even get over to the UK. I've been doing more Comic-Con appearances. And so I had a couple planned, like that was gone. We were about to do the Sesame Street movie here last year, and that went away.
No.
So, yes. So, but basically, aside from work, like at my son, my wife here, we were safe, we were fine. We pretty much, if we're on the other side, like that's pretty much the best news there is. Like we made it through, no one got sick, we're all fully vaccinated, we're fine. And it's actually really kind of weird going back out into the world. Like for 2 straight nights, I had friends who were in town. And pandemic aside, I haven't seen these guys in years. And we went out, and it was just kind of like, it was amazing and also kind of weird, just like seeing people outside and being in a restaurant and actually holding menus and people around it. And the servers were still wearing masks and all, but it was just like they didn't take our temperature coming in. They just like seated us and we sat down. It's like, okay, well, I never thought we'd be this far on the other side this soon. So, but yeah, it's like I've been doing like little things like at home. Like last year, because I was here, I was like, well, let's see, what do I do now? And I thought, oh, I'll start my own podcast. So I started this podcast called Noel's Book Nook. And it's basically where I just like read chapters from classic public domain stories I don't have to pay for. So I just like read some Beatrix Potter, read a chapter from Frankenstein, from The Wizard of Oz, from like all kinds of books. So it's just like, okay, that was fun. So, and now we're getting back into things. So yeah, I'm looking forward to actually being busy again, which is starting to happen.
Good. That's really good. I'm so pleased that everyone was okay and you got through it all right, and that you're fully vaccinated, which is absolutely excellent. You actually answered one of my questions already about the podcast. So, yeah, what made you want to do that sort of thing? Was it just because you thought, because you've got an absolutely stunning voice? Well, come on, Noel. Let's be real here.
Oh, for sure. No, it's actually well, one of the things that happened last year, since I was at home, my son, who's 16 going on 42, he said that Dad, it's like, you should go on TikTok. And I said, what's a TikTok? And after a 30-second extremely patronizing explanation, he said, yeah, and you should use your bear puppet. Now I have this puppet of Bear, because Bear was what's called a full body puppet. I wore him. I was inside him. So this is like a puppet of a puppet that was made for me by a friend of mine, James Voital Jr., and he's excellent. In fact, he was one of the builders of Bear. So he made me this sort of, kind of like if Bear got stuck in the dryer and just kind of shrank down a little bit. So it's like a hair puppet version of him. Yeah, and he said, you should use your Bear. It's like, why? It's like, millennials grew up with Bear. They'd be all over it. And I was like, really? So I did this quick little intro with like me and Bear said, hey, we're on TikTok now. We're going to have a lot of fun. I was shocked at just like the numbers popping up like every few seconds, like, 50 people, 75, 125, 324, 1,000. It's like, it just kept going on and on. It's like, I couldn't believe it. So what really helped last year was doing these little videos and putting them up because people were isolated, people were home. And so having their like childhood friend, like be there again. In fact, so many kids lost their high school and college graduations formally. So I did this little video where I made a little mortarboard for Bear and a little kind of like graduation outfit, and had him, congratulate the graduates of 2020. And as you travel through life, remember one thing. And he sniffs the camera and said, "You're still smelling really good." And just the outpouring of people like, "Oh my God, it's like you started my childhood and now you're helping me start my adulthood. Thank you." It just went on and on. So one of the things I discovered one day was that the Royal Shakespeare Company was celebrating the birth of William Shakespeare, which is also, by sheer coincidence, the day he died. So you covered both. And so they had people like from all over the world, celebrities and non-celebrities, just read like little pieces of Shakespeare. So Bear did one where I had him read the last couple of lines from Midsummer Night's Dream, what that Puck says. And so I did that. So then that made me think like, oh, well, maybe people would like to like hear, bear like read stories. And so because he and I have voices that sound similar. And so that's why I started the podcast. And then like doing the other TikTok stuff's actually been really fun too. It just incredible how people just responded to it. So
Yes.
I don't know if you guys are on the TikTok, but it's worth checking out.
I think it's great, to be honest. Like, people have used it, especially during this pandemic, to just use their creativity so much. It is insane the amount of stuff people have done. I genuinely quite like. Obviously, you get a lot of idiots on there, but but people that have actually used it for good and have actually embraced their creativity, it's incredible to see.
Oh yeah, it truly does run the gamut from like endearing, sweet, funny, poignant to just why did you think this was a good idea?
Yeah.
Okay. Someone should have stopped you. Put down the phone. Go read a book. It's like, yeah. So it just runs the gamut. Yeah. But I like it. It's really fun. So
good fun.
I put stuff up there. So yeah. So it was like that was the inspiration for like the little podcast. Just bear reading Shakespeare.
Stunning.
But just going back quickly to what you're saying about did you say they were going to make a Sesame Street movie?
Yes, they're going to make another Sesame Street movie. Yes,
that's amazing.
And they're going to do it. I'm just going to do it conveniently here in New York because I live in New York. It would have been right here in my backyard, and it got postponed. So I believe we're going to be doing it maybe next year. I'm not sure yet. So, but it got postponed. So yeah, things are starting to come back. But yes, and Sesame Street just wrapped season 52. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Incredible.
Oh yeah. You guys had your own version of Sesame Street. You had the what was it? The Dorchester? What was it? The Furchester.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Furchester.
Welcome to the Furchester.
Because with Sesame Street, because I've worked with the international team, the co-productions. That's what they're called when they're outside of the U.S. And so each co-production caters to that particular country and that particular culture. So some of the countries like India and Mexico and Germany, they have like a street set, and they have characters designed for their street set. But other countries and other cultures, that's not a thing. Like for instance, there was Ireland had Sesame Tree, and it took place in a tree. It was more like a magazine show with like inserts that were just like put in. And then for you guys in the UK, the Furchester was designed because you guys like farce and comedy and kind of like a music hall kind of sense. And so it's kind of like, like the Muppet Show meets Fawlty Towers, and that was the Furchester. So
I think I did actually describe it once as a kid's version of Fawlty Towers. Yeah, it really
exactly.
is. I had no idea that was made for the UK. I just assumed it was
that was specifically for you guys, because it's just like just having a regular Sesame Street. They really do try to make it unique for each specific culture, and then of course
awesome.
For each culture they have their own specific curriculums. Like the Sesame for Japan was, and there's always the basic, like the numbers, the alphabet, that kind of thing. But then for Japan, it was about empathy and recognizing your feelings and the feelings of others. For India, it was about hygiene and clean water and where to find clean water and how to make clean water. And for Palestine, it was about identity, like who you are as a person, in your family, in your community, in your country. And I've had the opportunity to visit like some of these countries, and it's just been amazing just meeting these people and going to experiencing something like so unique, and working with the writers, especially because here in the US, like Jim Henson and Sesame and the Muppet Show, we have there's this Yiddish word called shtick, and it's just like it's a form of humor. And so I grew up with shtick, but not every country did. So sometimes you have to tell them like it has to be funny first, and then you can always stick in a lesson there. But for some of them, it's just like it was really like kind of like you really have to alter your mindset because it's for kids and it's supposed to be funny because it's puppets. And puppets can do things people can't do. So it takes, some people get it, some people don't, But in the end, it somehow all works out. So
I love that.
It must be so difficult sometimes to write for children, like shows, especially this day and age now where the culture has changed so much now. It's almost like you're like, oh, well, that was patronizing. Oh, but you say, you know, and I don't know, I'm trying to explain myself, but I think back in the 90s, you could pretty much just be like, write anything, teach anything. But now it's like you have to be so careful with what you say, what you do, you know, without patronizing people. You've got to aim it at that direct age group rather than broader.
Well, it's like, yeah, I mean, with Sesame Street, it was always like, you know, it's like, it's for kids. So no matter what you're trying to teach, you're entertaining children first.
Yeah.
And that Sesame Street's a safe haven. It's, you know, it's like you can go, you can watch, it's fine. It was interesting when I was in Palestine and they were re-gearing up their Sesame Street and they brought in new writers. And there was this one young guy, and through the translator, we were talking back and forth. And so I explained to them like the rules of like, you know, writing for Sesame, and just like, you know, first, it's funny. Second rule, it's funny. Third rule, it's funny. And I showed them examples of all that. And so I gave them an assignment like, okay, now tomorrow, come in and pitch an idea. And who knows, we might even use it on, you know, your Sesame. And so this one young guy came in the next day and pitched this idea for their Palestinian Sesame Street. So one side, it's a split screen. One side, there's the Sesame Street Palestinian puppet who answers the phone. And on the other side is the puppet, their friend, who is in the Gaza Strip. And the Sesame puppet called his friend in the Gaza Strip because he was concerned and worried about him. And it's hard for the Gaza Strip Muppet to hear the Sesame Muppet because of all the bombing and the gunfire in the background. Oh, wait. So then the Sesame puppet wants to help their friend feel better. So writes a little note and like ties it to a dove and like lets it fly out of frame. A second later, you hear a gunshot. And on the Gaza side, you're supposed to see feathers floating down onto the head of the Palestinian Muppet.
What the hell?
And through the interpreter, I said, a world of no. I said, I understand what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing, but this is not the way to do it. And so I said, but it's still an interesting idea. So I posed it to everybody else like, okay, how could we make this idea work for Sesame Street? And so after working it through, it worked it out. And they eventually actually did use it for the show, where the two Muppets see their human friend who's very sad. And the human friend says, I haven't heard from my friend who's in the Gaza Strip and I'm worried. So the two Muppets decide, okay, we're going to help him feel better. And so they try and think of comical things to do. Like they dress up as clowns. They try to do balloon animals, which keep flying out of their fingers. And it's basically physical stuff that puppets can do, because having a puppet just stand and talk is like just boring. So it was like funny puppet shtick. And so the friend smiles and says, thank you, I really appreciate what you're trying to do. And in fact, you gave me an idea. So they take one of the balloons that they were trying to make an animal of, and they blow it up. They draw a picture of all three of them. They tie it to the balloon, and then they fly, and you see it fly over the wall of their Sesame towards the area where the direction the Gaza Strip would be. And the friend feels better. And through the interpreter, the young writer says, but you watered it down. And through the interpreter, I said, you're damn right I watered it down. It's Sesame Street. Needless to say, he did not last.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't for his show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. And it's like, and other things like when they were redoing the Sesame Street in India, they have a street segment, then they have a segment with Elmo and a last segment with Grover. And it's all puppeteers, Indian puppeteers, so they're speaking Hindi. They're actually, you don't have to dub it. They're actually creating their own content and they're dubbing it. And Grover and his little monkey friend are in the real world having adventures. And so they were really, really concerned about how to get Grover right. It was like so focused, like, how do we get Grover right? And so I emailed Eric Jacobson, who's Grover now and asked his advice. And he gave him the piece of advice that Grover is never wrong. He will never admit he can't do something. Even if it's a complete failure, he will go at it full steam because he's trying. And he never uses contractions. He's very formal. It's very precise. He's all about the rules, all about how things done. And it's like, even if it fails, it's like he followed the rules because he's very formal and punctual. And all the writers were like, oh, he's Punjabi. Oh. But I guess for them, there's a sort of person who's just sort of very very just follow the rules and just so. But that's how they got it. That's how they were able to do it. So it's very interesting, working with the different cultures and the different co-productions, and it's been so rewarding. Plus, I get great free travel. So, well, back in the day, right now with Zoom calls, it's like, it's like, oh well, it was good while it lasted.
I'm sure it'll come back. I'm sure we'll be able to travel again. I'm sure, there might not be any sort of way it was, but there'll be some sort of normal, I imagine.
Oh, yeah, it is. I mean, even before the pandemic, it was just budgetary cuts. So I remember talking to a team, I was in the office in New York and they were in their office. And I think it was India again. I was just catching up with them. But it was a Zoom call. So it was okay. So, but hopefully get to travel again. So because they're always coming up with co-productions somehow.
Doesn't matter. Right, I wanted to go back to your start. So from what I gathered from my research, you got your career started with PBS working with Frank Oz and Jim Henson.
Yes.
But how did you get to that point working with these greats?
Oh yeah,
great is a bloody understatement.
Yeah, just I worked with Kermit and Piggy and Yoda and and Ernie. Yeah, so when I was a kid, there were much more TV shows on that had puppets here in the United States. There was Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop. There was a show called Captain Kangaroo. We had Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and there was a ventriloquist named Paul Winchell, who later went on to become the voice of Tigger, the original voice of Tigger for the Disney movies. And also, Paul Winchell helped invent the artificial heart. So puppetry can save lives. Yes. Google it, kids. And so
Tigger created the artificial heart?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Wow, that is incredible.
So when I was about 6 or 7 years old, on a Sunday night, there was this half-hour show on our local PBS station, and they were talking about this brand new show that was coming on the next morning, and it was called Sesame Street, and this show was hosted by two Muppets who I'd never seen that type of puppet before, because puppets were usually made of wood or a sock, like Lamb Chop, but these were soft-looking, but their mouths opened and closed when they talked, and one had the shape of a football, and the other one was kind of like a banana, and their names were Ernie and Bert. And they showed scenes from Sesame Street. And when I saw Big Bird, I was floored, because this was a puppet that actually walk around and talk. So then during the height of the Muppet Show, that's when I was in high school, and I started thinking what I wanted to do for a living. And I thought, well, this guy Jim Henson's making a living from this, and all these people around him are making a living. Maybe I could be a puppeteer. So I did research the old-fashioned way. I went to the library. It's like a bookstore, but it's free. And I went through all the research, and at that time there were two schools that I found. One was in the University of Connecticut in Storrs, Connecticut, which to this day you can take a 4-year puppetry program and get your master's degree in puppetry if you want to. And the other one I looked into was here in New York in Brooklyn, and it's called Pratt Institute. And I realized the word Pratt means something different over there, but this happened to be named after a guy whose last name was Pratt. So, and within Pratt, they had a theater department, and within the theater department, they had a puppetry course. And so I had all the information laid out. Now, I was going to present this to my mom. Now, my mom was a single mom. My dad, her husband, walked out on us when I was 18 months old and ran away with a woman he was dating, and never told her about us. And so she was taking care of me. She was taking care of her mom, and her uncle we all lived in the same apartment. And she was holding out 2 jobs to send me to private school because I grew up in Central Harlem. So at that time, the choices of high school was the school where the kid got shot or the school where the kid got stabbed. So she sent me downtown to a school called Rhodes Prep School. And so single mom holding down 2 jobs, sending the kid to private school, who says, I know what I want to be, a puppeteer. And I just brace myself. Just like, okay. And she looked at me and she said, okay, what do we have to do?
Oh, that's amazing.
And that just it threw me off. Like, well, there's this school, there's this school. And she said, okay, what do we have to do? Well, this school needs this by then. This school needs this by then. Okay, what do we have to do? That's all she kept saying, guys, over and over. What do we have to do? Because she was a private secretary. And she says, I've been typing the same letter for the past 20 years. So you can always get a job, Noel. Get a career. And I was like, that's what it is. And she said, and for some reason, you want to be a lumberjack tomorrow? We'll figure out how to do that. So I lucked out by having somebody just so supportive of me right from the get-go. So I ended up, in case you're wondering, going to Pratt and becoming a theater major and taking a puppetry course, which was taught by sheer coincidence, one of the designers and builders for the Muppets. In fact, he designed and built Big Bird and Snuffy. And his name was Kermit Love. And no, the frog was not named after him. It's just one of those freaky coincidences that destiny likes to play with you. And so I ended up going to his classes and then working summer part-time at his workshop, refeathering Big Bird during the summer with no air conditioning. So that was fun. And then his assistant, just before I graduated, his assistant on Sesame Street quit, and he offered me the job to be his assistant on Sesame Street. So I just like snapped it up. And so I just learned like television production, being what's called the wrangler, the person who takes care of the puppets and makes sure that they're camera ready and everything is all set up for the puppeteers. And so I got to sit on like production meetings and go over the scripts and see the setup. So I really had this great education in television puppetry before I started actually puppeteering for the show. And that's where I met Jim, and that's where I met Frank, as well as Jerry Nelson and Richard Hunt and Fran Brill and my mentor, Carol Spinney, who was a Big Bird and also Oscar. So, and then the rest is history. I just kept like doing, the 80s was great because it was also like a lot of commercials that had puppets in it that Kermit was involved in, and then other commercials with puppets, and yeah, just like kept going from there. But that's how it started. It started off with my mom just saying, you can always get a job, get a career.
She sounds like an absolute hero.
She was. She was great. She was so proud of me, and she would even be more proud of my son because he's a vocal major at a performing arts high school. Oh. And he's like a tall, handsome young man that she went pretty much. My wife and I could not have brought home a girl because she just kept saying, you know, my grandson, it's going to be a boy. I know it's going to be a boy. My grandson, I know. Of course, it's like I know, absolutely. And she also would be still proud of my wife, who is Susan Elia MacNeal, the author of the Maggie Hope Mysteries, available on Amazon UK and your independent bookseller, with book number 10, The Hollywood Spy, coming July 6th.
Now she can move away from the corner of the room with the gun. Not my book.
Thank you. Love you too. Okay, so I got the infomercial parts and down to an art form now.
So what was the first project you worked on? Can you remember?
Well, the first thing I did was when I started puppeteering on Sesame was I actually did the first Sesame Street movie, which was called Follow That Bird, and so which is a great movie and it still holds up. And I'm the character that kind of sets the story off. It's Madam Chairbird of the Feathered Friends Society, this do-gooder society that believes that birds need to be with their own kind, proper bird families. So I get like the character that starts it off, and then I was also wrangling and like doubling for Carol. But my first character that I actually like created or starred for was a show here in the States was on Nickelodeon. It was called Eureka's Castle. And I don't know if you have Paramount Plus over there now, but
We don't know.
you don't. Shoot. Because now they're actually rerunning those episodes of Eureka's Castle, which we did back in like 1989 and 90. And it took place in this castle that was actually a music box for a giant. And my character was Magellan, who was like a 3-year-old dragon, but he was like the size of Big Bird because he's a dragon. And so that was like my first like starring role that I got to do. And because he was pretty much similar to Big Bird, I just applied everything that Carol ever taught me, because I would do Big Bird for the parades and for photo shoots, and also scenes in the background if Big Bird and Oscar had to be in the same scene at the same time. Actually, there's this great song on YouTube, and it's Big Bird's grandmother singing to Big Bird. So Carol did the voice of Granny Bird and recorded the song, but I'm lip syncing to it in another bird. So that was really special. So.
That's
awesome.
It's incredible just being able to be in characters. I don't know. I love it. I just think it's fantastic. Sorry, I'm getting blown away by these stories. It's like, yeah, tell me more, Noel. Tell me more.
Tell me a story. tell me more. It's like, yeah, it's just like, it's like all these, like, I'm really proud of like how my career like has taken me in all these directions. In fact, last time I was in the UK was in 2018 when I got to be with the Muppets. and we did the Muppets Take the O2, which was
I wanted to go to that so bad.
a fun adventure, which was just amazing. And just like, and because we did the Hollywood Bowl, which was really nice, and it sold out. But the Hollywood Bowl is not the same size as the O2. And so we walked in as it was still like setting up the set that day, and we're just looking around like, it's like this is really big. Like, are we going to fill this place up? And we were shocked that we did. In fact, we did a Friday night show, Saturday matinee, and a Saturday night show. And we were shocked that the Saturday matinee show just completely sold out, to the point where they had to like open up the seating at the very top because it just sold out. It was unbelievable. And there's this part at the end, which you can see on YouTube, where the Muppets and the guest stars are singing Rainbow Connection together. And then everybody just like takes their phones and like puts on like, you know, like a light and just, or like a candle, and just hold it up. So you just look out from where we were on the stage and just see these like this sea of like stars just twinkling through all these hundreds and hundreds of people. It was so emotional. Then what was great after that, after we did the show, we all like split off to like all points of Europe. So it was like great. Like we worked for a little while, then we just went off and played. So my wife and my son and I, we went up to Scotland to Erisaig House, because thanks to the magic of Facebook and Ancestry.com, I found out that MacNeal is not a slave name. It's an actual legit Scottish name, because James MacNeal emigrated from Scotland in the 19th century, ended up somehow in Virginia, met a woman named Parthenia, married her. One of the kids was James Jr., who then ended up in New Orleans, met a Creole woman named Pelomina, and started their family, and it's like went on from there. But it's like, I'm pretty proud that like I'm actually like part Scottish. So I was like, that was cool. So I figured this is the first time a MacNeal's actually set foot back in Scotland.
incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was good. So it was like, it was, and I love Scotland. We all did. My wife had been there before, but she had done research for one of her books that actually takes place in Erisaig, because Erisaig House was used as a training ground for SOE agents. And so her character, Maggie Hope, is one of the instructors at the SOE campgrounds there. And so she said it's a beautiful house. And so we went up to Erisaig and stayed there. And it was just like gorgeous. And just like, I just want to go back to Scotland like so badly. Like,
I feel that.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I absolutely feel that.
Right. We stayed overnight in Glasgow. And then she said, next time we go, we have to go to Edinburgh. We got to go to Edinburgh.
You've not been to Edinburgh yet?
What?
Have you not been to Edinburgh yet?
No, not yet. No.
Oh.
She has. She has. She said she told me, because I'm like such a Disney geek. She said, "You'll love it. It's like the Scottish Disneyland. It's like they have a main street. There's a castle at the end of it.
Yeah.
You can ride a trolley.
Yeah.
You can go to the Guinness factory and there's a tour. You get it's like the Haunted Mansion, but with alcohol. You'll love it."
It's just a beautiful city. It's so historic, and there's just so much to see and do there. It's beautiful. I love it. I can't wait to go back.
I know we can't. We're just like we're hoping. Maybe like next summer. It's like things will be like pulled together, like so we can like go back. So it's like fingers crossed, kids.
Come on.
You can do it. Get the shop. Yes.
I've just clicked on while we're talking here. You're just saying your first job, you were working with Carol and on Sesame Street, and you're still working on Sesame Street now. So basically, since you started, you've worked on Sesame Street your entire puppeteering.
I started Sesame in the fall of 1982. So I've been like off and on with Sesame Street. In fact, I just this past winter, I not only puppeteered, but I got to direct 3 inserts for the YouTube channel on because Sesame has a YouTube channel, and so I directed. And then because of the restrictions of COVID in the little studio, they asked, "Noel, would you mind puppeteering too?" I was like, "Sure, double duty, double paycheck. Sure, I'll do that." So I got to direct and also to puppeteer. So you go to YouTube and it's like Sesame Wheels on the Bus, and there's like 3 segments: one with on a farm on a bus, and another with a fire truck. And it was really fun. It was really cool. So I'm on like off and on with Sesame.
Does that mean that you like shouted at yourself if you got it, make you messed up? Not again, no, not again.
Oh, no. It's like I have to slap myself. It's like, actually, it's like the very first time I directed myself was actually I got to direct an episode of Bear, and so they had to deliberately write it so that Bear wasn't in all the scenes, because the show Bear was in like 99.9% of the scenes. So for this one, it's called Volunteers of Woodland Valley, and Bear's going to go off and volunteer in the community, but then he hurts his foot. So then all the other characters, Pip and Pop and Tutter and Trilo, they have to go and take his place. So Bear's back at the house. So then with him kind of incapacitated, then I could actually free up and actually direct the other characters who were in the library and also at the fire station. But then it was like, doing scenes as Bear, like with all the characters, like, "Yeah, Bear, that's great. Yay, yes, it is. Ha 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 ha." And then Bear would just look at the camera and say, "And cut."
I just got this image of you just ripping the head off and just going, "No, Pop, no!"
Actually, I don't know who did. It was like in the local paper here, like Daily News, like during the height of it in the late 90s. But somebody like drew this like political cartoon, and it was like the outside of the house with these like set camera lights on it, and there's a bear outside the house holding a script, and it's like, and in one hand, and in the other hand, the other paw is like Bear's head, but inside, instead of being a person like me, it's another bear, like pulled off this costume bear, and he's kind of like looking kind of skeptically at the script, like what he has to read now. So it was really funny. I have it somewhere, just like a copy of it somewhere, but it was like really funny. So it's like, okay. I'm sure it's going to be a bit on Saturday Night Live at some point. So
I read that you did the face puppetry for Raphael in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, which is one of my favorite films ever as a kid and now. Like that's because I generally, when I read it, I thought, "Oh my god, you actually were Raphael," but no, I just said apparently it was all the. So how does that work then? Because if you're not in the character itself, how are you maneuvering the face?
It takes about, for the turtle movie, especially for the third one I worked on, it takes 5 people to do one turtle. So there's the actor inside, who is Matt Hill. And then there's the puppeteer for the face. That was me. Then there's the martial artist who does all the fighting.
Yeah.
Then because they were riding horses and falling off, there was the stunt double. And then once all the principal photography is done, they take it back to Hollywood. And the guy sits in the chair at a booth and records his voice over my voice. So it's like 5 people to do this one character.
That's nuts.
And the magic of editing to make it look seamless. But yeah, I worked with Matt, and who's great. He's a voiceover artist too. He lives in Canada, and we had great chemistry. And so we could hear each other. I could hear him because he had a microphone inside, and he could hear me telling him, like, you know, in case he was getting like too near an edge or there's a pole coming up, it's like, Matt, stop.
Yeah.
So I've only ever heard nightmare stories of those turtle suits.
Oh, they're horrified. It's like they're rubber, and inside, you know, Matt could basically just hear the gears and just doing the mouth and like clang, 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 clang. So it was just like you really had to like, they had to rehearse it, and then when they were absolutely ready, that's when you put the heads on, and then we would do the scene, and then if it's possible, like just do it one more time and then just pop it off, because it was just so, it's like you really can't breathe in there, and so you would come out and be like sweating. But he was such a trooper. And there's the great scene with Raphael talking to the little kid Yoshi, and inside the hut, and we did that like a couple of times because Matt and I really wanted to get it right, especially with like the close-up stuff and like really having, because I had to like program this device that was basically, it's like a glorified oven mitt that has wires coming out to make the mouth open and close, and then there's this other little toggle, and I pre-programmed so that if I turned like the oven mitt to the left, then his mouth could kind of like go up halfway, or the other way. If I pull back, he could like smile. If I pull forward, he could frown, and just like all these little things. So I really wanted to get like the articulation right, especially because it was so close up. When he's like, "Don't worry, kid, nobody's going to die." It's just like, it's really got to look like his lips are actually articulating it. So, but it was fun, and we shot it in Astoria, Oregon, which is like the very topmost north corner of the state of Oregon. And apparently the mountains of Oregon kind of look like feudal Japan. So it worked out. So.
I was going to say, you mean that wasn't really filmed in like ancient Japan? Disappointed.
No, filmed not on location in ancient Japan. We had a limited budget, so we really couldn't time travel. So
I saw a picture on social media recently of one of those old turtle suits now, like after it's been worn away. It is a stuff of nightmares. I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh yeah, it's just like, yeah, because it's rubber and rubber rots. Yeah. So it's just like,
it's horrifying.
Like, these like glass eyes and like these teeth exposed, and just like chunks of the rubber flesh have flaked off and fallen off. It's a horror movie.
Horrifying, it really is.
Yeah, it is.
So, obviously, being a puppeteer, there's times where you've operated puppets for bigger, like well-known characters. For example, I've seen you operated Rabbit in the Book of Pooh. You mentioned Big Bird before, and Statler from Statler and Waldorf. I saw you did that on Jimmy Fallon, was it?
Oh no, Saturday Night Live.
Saturday Night Live. Sorry.
Yeah, we did that.
Is there like a certain pressure to operate in these characters? Because all these characters have got their own mannerisms that people recognize and stuff like that. Is there like a pressure to get in that right? So
it's like because of especially like TV or then film puppetry. It's like, it's not like theatrical puppetry where you're allowed to be a little more broad and play to the cheap seats, because TV and the film is so intimate. You really have to be very precise with your movement and controlled, so that you're making sure that this little magic trick works, so that the characters are imitating, human life, because that's the trick. It's like if you see a character, like Kermit standing and talking and, kind of grimacing his face because he's a little sad, or like laughing. It's like, it's something that you can relate to because, you talk, you laugh, you grimace from time to time. But if it's really floppy and flappy, there's no connection to it. It's just a doll. This is flopping around. But to really make it look like it's alive, to make you believe that this character is actually going through this situation and emotionally making you feel for them, that's the secret of it. So we're like, for me with Bear, I would always, for myself, keep it fresh, because Bear was the ultimate caretaker. He never lost his patience. He always had time. He was like the ultimate parent, babysitter, like guardian. It's like, he was like perfect. And so to keep it fresh, we always like, from the beginning of each show, Bear would open the door. So I would have this mindset inside that as soon as I open the door and look at the camera, like, that's a kid who has never seen this show before. He has no idea who this character is. She has no comprehension of what's going on. So that's the kid at home that I'm playing to. And inside, I'm like smiling. It's like saying the lines, smiling. Because you can just like, you can kind of hear the difference when you say something. And then when you smile and say something, there's a difference to it. So it's just like keeping it up. But then, of course, you know, Bear could be a little cheeky sometimes. Like somebody commented on how Bear would often like just do like a little slow burn the camera when like, you know, walking in and Pip and Pop have pretty much caused chaos and they're trying to explain, and Bear would kind of very slowly kind of look at the camera to that parent at home and kind of like narrow the eyes with that sort of like simpatico, like, you know what I'm going through, right? And turn back to the otters and deal with that. But he would always have that connection with the parents at home, like, yeah. Okay. Here we go again. So that was like with Bear, I was just like that little mindset. And then of course, when he was out in the real world, when he was on like the game show Hollywood Squares, he could be a little more cheeky. So he could, because that was also what was nice about Bear was he was a grown-up. So many puppet characters are kids or very young in age. Bear was a grown-up. So he could get away with saying like a couple little things like, you know, like on Hollywood Squares. Again, you can watch it on YouTube. The embassy, Tom Bergeron, was like, Bear, rats could do this longer than camels. Do what? And Bear said, stay in law school. Oh, yeah. So like, you know, things like that. So it's like, and just like, you know, and that was great with Hollywood Squares. They would give you the questions, and like the first 2 times, there's like 3 rounds. The first 2 rounds, you have time to make a joke and all that. So I would come up with these jokes. Then the third time, they would ask you, just please, just like answer the question. And if you know the answer, that's fine. But if you want to bluff, go right ahead. So they didn't tell you to bluff, but if they said, if you wanted to bluff, oh, you don't know the answer, bluff with conviction. Yeah, so sometimes it's like, sometimes I knew the answer, sometimes I didn't know the answer, but I bluffed with conviction.
So you were a script writer for Bear in the Big Blue House as well.
Yes.
And also the Magic School Bus as well, as I read, which I used to absolutely love that as a kid as well. No, you've done everything. So many things and so many pies.
I'm proud to say my resume is most people's childhood memory. So it's like, if you were allowed to watch way too much television as a child, you probably saw something I was involved in. So with the Magic School Bus, that was for writing for animation, and it was really interesting because, you know, with a script, it's like, you know, like for Bear, like door opens, like Bear greets the viewer. It's like, hi, like, come on in. Bear turns inside, he stops, he smells. So it's like, it's pretty like broad in general. But with animation, you have to write everything. It's like, you know, like fade in, like wide shot, the school, like push in towards the school, dissolve to classroom, overhead shot of like, cut to, and you have to put in all of it so that the animators could just look at it and then just do exactly what you've written, which was really like new for me. So it was like, there was no interpretation, like that's why I wanted to look, and that's how they did it. So it was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So and the other thing was with the school bus, they would have the science team come in, and we would do experiments with them about that particular topic, or they would show us demonstrations with that topic. So that was fun too, because they wanted to instill in us the excitement of like, you know, a kid discovering this for the first time, so then we could then write it in that same kind of spirit. So it was fun. So I wrote 2. I wrote about the life cycle of stars, and then one about animals that have ended up living in the city, like wild animals. So that was cool.
So cool. So obviously puppetry was your first step, but did you ever think you get to like script writing or directing or, you know, anything like that at all?
Script writing started with Eureka's Castle, because the first season that we did it, the head writer really didn't get puppet humor all that much. It was, and so we would start to like, you know, suggest things at the read through, or we could say this, or we could do this. Then we realized like sometimes they just wouldn't get it. So that's when the puppeteers and I decided, you know what, we're not going to suggest it. We're just going to do it on camera. So sometimes we even rehearse it as scripted, but then once the camera was rolling, then we would just do our own thing. which was so much better. And don't feel sorry for the head writer. The head writer was his screen credit was Jovial Bob Stein. Well, Jovial is actually this guy named R.L. Stein. And I hear he's written a whole bunch of books called Goosebumps and Fear Street. So he's fine. So
holy shit, that's amazing.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. But then for the second season, that's when I asked, can I just write for the show? And they let me do it. So I wrote for them. And then the same thing happened with another show I wrote for. Another show I puppeteered on for PBS was called The Puzzle Place. And I wrote for that show as well. So by the time we did Bear, by the second season, it's like, can I write? I get a sense of this now. Can I write this show?
You know what, guys? I'll just do it all. I'll just do all of it. I don't need any of you guys. I'll just do it myself.
Well, what was great was like in the beginning, like with Bear, when he would do his like, we're going to talk about like communication. We would talk about, like whatever the theme was. And then he would do his dance. Basically, they left it up to me. Like the director would say, okay, no, what are you thinking? It's like, well, we could start here, and then I could go to the kitchen and come back to the foyer, and we could end up here. And they were like, okay. So I pretty much made up my own choreography, and then they just like followed me along per my suggestion, like we can start here and all that. So yeah, and then that's when by the fourth season I asked, like, can I direct an episode? So they actually said yes. So it actually worked out.
Can I just buy all the rights to this show?
It's like it's so frustrating because people keep asking me. It's like, no, you should put Bear on Disney Plus. Like, no, when is Bear going to be on Disney Plus? Like, folks, if I had any control over this, it never would have left. So please stop asking me. I am not the man with the power. It's like, contact Disney Plus. You know who's a big fan of Bear? Once upon a time, Bob Iger. Like, contact him. Maybe he has some pull still.
I was going to say, he probably has some pull.
Yeah, exactly. Get him to put it on.
I'll just cross that question out then, okay?
Yeah, exactly. You can ask Bob.
Right. So we probably should talk a bit more detail about Bear. So how did this show come about? Like, did you have to audition for it, or did they approach you about it?
Yeah, that's like I did audition for it. Actually, it came about because there was a deal that Jim did with the Walt Disney Company. And then, unfortunately, Jim died. So to try and salvage the deal, it was decided that the Jim Henson Company would come up with like 3 things for the Walt Disney Company. So the first project they did for the Walt Disney Company, they decided a primetime series with puppets. And that was the series Dinosaurs.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and that was it. The second one, a couple of years later, was called Alien in the Family. And it was like a human parent and an alien parent, and it's like the mix, kind of like the Brady Bunch meets Alf kind of thing, like mixing it together. So then the last obligation was another show, but instead of doing it for primetime, they thought, let's do something for the new extension of the Disney Channel called Playhouse Disney, or Disney Playhouse. They still hadn't decided the name. And so they hired Mitchell Kriegman, and who came in and pretty much looked through the files, is there anything that from these old files that never got developed really? And there was this thing about a house and a bear. And so he just took that and just went off with it and just developed the show. And originally the house was supposed to, and in this idea, the house was kind of alive, but he just decided to just have more puppet characters. And so I actually went in and auditioned for another show that morning. And then I came back home. And then just before, a little after 4:00, that's when I got a phone call. And they said, no, could you come back? There's this other character we'd like you to audition for. And so I was like, sure, I'll do it. And so they faxed, that's right, kids, faxed me the sides and the illustrations. This was 1997, so they faxed me. And in the cab, I'm looking, going oh, well, this looks cute. This is the sketch of this bear and these little critters around him and the moon that has this face behind him. I was like, oh, okay. And I look at it. And then I walk in And the executive at the time, Peter Van Roden, said, "Use your own voice." And I was like, "What?" It's like, "Use your own voice." It's like, but we're the Muppets. We don't do that. And so, but basically, he was explaining to me that they wanted Bear to kind of not be like Barney, because there was already this big, huge character with kind of a voice like this. It's like they didn't want that. And pretty much all through the day, people who would come in were doing these kind of like, "Hi there, I'm a bear. Like, welcome to the big." They were doing all these kind of like goofy voices. So then Peter just said, "Use your own voice." I was like, "Oh, okay." And so at that time, before I was married and had a kid, I would call it my Uncle Noel mode. So that whenever I visited a friend who had kids, I would just pretty much have this mode of like, "Okay, what do you want to do? You call the shots, your rules of the game. What are we doing? How are we having fun?" And just like, that was my Uncle Noel mode inside. And I got into the prototype, which didn't have fur, but it still had the understructure and it's like the foam head of Bear, but nothing was covered in fur. And it felt really nice. I was like, wow, this would really be cool to do. And then I realized, you know what, Noel, it's 4:45. It's like, you go the last one here. They already picked out who they want. They just want to make sure. So it's like, it's like, screw it. I'm just going to have fun. And so that's when I just didn't care. And that's when I just had fun. And just like one part of the script said, he smells something and realizes it's the person at home. So that's when I like ran around sniffing and then looked at the camera and then just jammed the nose all the way in and pulled it all the way out. And like holding up a glass of water and like holding it up so that you could see Bear's eyes like through the reflection. Because I was just having fun. It's like, okay, thanks, goodbye. And I went off for the weekend. And then that Monday, just before 6 o'clock, I got the call. They said, "No, we'd like you to be Bear." And I was like, what? And yeah, and then that's how it started. But it started because at the audition, I didn't care, which is pretty much advice I tell my son too when he auditions for things at school. It's like, remember, go, have fun, and then don't care. Just let it go. Just forget about it.
Probably the best thing though, because you're not full of nerves. You're just being yourself and having fun. It's a kid's show. You know, you want to be relaxed and having fun while you're doing it, really.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's just like, yeah, there was like, just reminding each other, like, it's a puppet show. Like, let's all relax here. Let's let's not take ourselves too serious. I think Barry even said that one time. It's like, keep in mind, you're talking to a 7-foot bear who's telling you really need to relax. If this is the day we're having, maybe we should all take a 5. And I think we did, actually.
So my favorite thing about Bear, like you sort of hinted at it then with the nose sniffing and stuff like that, is the mannerisms. It's the way he moved was just delightful. And it put a huge smile back. My mum once described Bear as Paul Stanley from Kiss in a bear suit. Like the way he moved, the shaking of the bum, was this something they said to you, like, we wanted to behave like, was this just all you?
It was like, well, first of all, the people who built Bear, they're artists. The puppet makers of the Jim Henson Company, the Jim Henson Workshop here in New York, they are true artists. And so and at the time I lived on the Upper East Side and the workshop was also on the Upper East Side. So every now and then I would get a call that say, "No, do you have any time later this week to come in and try fitting?" And I said, "I'll be there in 20 minutes." Because I just realized like he and I are going to have this very close relationship. Let's make this as comfortable as possible. And so I would go in and just try it on and then like do these little moves because he was supposed to be very light on his feet because he like danced and all that. And so that I could just discover like what he could do. And then, Bear always had a way of telling me sometimes, "Don't do that. A little twinge you're feeling right now? Yeah, don't do that again." Okay. Yeah. So it's just like we've found like the little middle ground. But yeah, just like the way he would just move was just like great because he was very light on his feet. So yeah, just coming up with that. And so I would have to, so then when they would start doing live shows like at the Disney parks and also the touring shows, I would go and I would train the guys and just tell them like how Bear would like stand, how he would sit. Like for instance, Bear always would always crouch down on his haunches because I actually had a saddle inside, so I could actually sit down. Because I remember the first time, like for one very early show, first season, like Bear like got down on his knees, and suddenly it looked like a guy in a bear suit. It didn't look real anymore because it looked like I was like on my knees. But the fact that I figured out I could squat down, and it's like, oh, this is much better. So it just kept that illusion going. But just those like little rules that you have to do when you're a guy in a bear suit. So.
I love that though, because little kids are probably not going to notice that, but you've noticed it and you're going, no, that ruins the illusion. Some kid might notice that the illusion's gone. Nope, fix this. No. I love that.
Yeah. It's like it was great, the illusion of Bear, because my wife loved the fact that I would do these appearances and all these kids were there and like these massive crowds. But then once Bear left, I could get out and get dressed, walk by the same families, the same crowd, and nobody would have any idea who I was. So she said she liked the sort of like the Superman syndrome, where it's just like you have no idea. But
unless she spoke.
Well, no, here it's fine because it's like out of sight, out of mind. But one time when I was in the UK doing appearances, I talked to this little girl afterwards, and she said, "You sound like Bear." I was like, right, because he has an accent, and it's the same accent.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Oh, no, you've got it all wrong.
No, you're wrong, lassie. No.
I'm so sorry. I'm not access on this at all.
The surname's MacNeal. The accent's real.
Yeah. Here's a pound. Go get some candy floss. Thank you.
You mentioned that though. I was going to ask about you saying you do expos and conventions and stuff like that. I was wondering, how often do you get asked to sing the songs, especially like Goodbye Moon and whatnot? Yeah,
it's like actually I'm also on a Cameo, so I fulfill requests for people. Sometimes as myself, but mostly as Bear, for different like congratulations or words of encouragement or birthday or Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, and I got a request. Like today, it's like for a mom who grew up with Bear, and for her 2-year-old, it's like, could you like sniff? She smells like strawberries, and could you sing part of Under My Blanket, because she loves that song. And I'm looking at my phone, going like, under your blanket, like, did I sing that? Because we did like 114 shows. Like, what song is that? So I literally have to go on YouTube and I'm looking it up and I'm seeing myself and I'm seeing like, yeah, that's me. That sounds like me. And like, no clue. Just gone. Because we did so many shows and so many songs. Like, I was like, wow. And then I was listening to it, I was like, okay, it's kind of coming back. But at the first glance, it was like, I have no idea what this woman's talking about.
I was going to ask if you remember like the words to the songs, but by the sound of it, you can't remember half the songs, let alone the words to them.
And people would say like a certain scene or something of dialogue, and it's like, I have no clue. I called it garbage memory because I couldn't. Normally with puppets like with Tutter and Pip and Pop, with Peter Lentz and Tyler Bunch and Vicky Eibner and Jim Krupa, they could take their scripts and they could tape it up to the side of the monitor. And so what you saw at home, that's what we see. That's how we puppeteer. But I didn't have that luxury of taping stuff up inside Bear. There was no room. So I had to memorize everything. So I had like little script like shrunk down that I'd pull out of my pocket, look at it, and kind of do during rehearsal, and then do the scene. And then once the scene was done, it was just like mentally crumple it up and just throw it away and just get ready for the next one. So when I say I don't remember that, I really don't remember because I threw it away.
It's got this image of you trying to find the old videos, like loading Disney Plus. Like, why aren't you on here?
Why? It's sometimes hard for me too, like watching something on YouTube of Bear, and I'm just critiquing myself, going, I could have done that better. It's like that has so past the ship has sailed. It's like, just let it go. No. So it's like, don't. So I really don't even look at the stuff anymore.
Am I right in thinking that you had to have air conditioning on all the time because it was so hot in that suit?
The first season, they realized that they just need to crank up the air conditioning. So you would walk in the studio and it would be freezing. It would be so cold. So that by the end of the first season, the wrap gift to everybody for doing a good job was this production jacket that had embroidered on it, Bear in the Big Blue House. But it was a fleecy jacket. So this way, with your fleecy jacket, you could bring it next season because you'll know how cold the studio is going to be. And sure enough, season 2, like everyone's walking around except for me in their fleecy jackets because it's freezing.
Speaking of the suit, do you know where it is now? Please say your closet. Please say your closet.
No. I live in New York, so we have like New York size closets. No, he is not. He is, Bear and his friends are at a workshop called Puppet Heap, which is in New Jersey. And Puppet Heap takes care of the Muppets. So they're in charge of taking care of the Muppets. It's not the Jim Henson Company anymore because back when the Formula One was owned by this German company that bought the Jim Henson Company for a very, very brief period of time. They bought him like in February. By September, the Germans had just like gone through all their money. So they were strapped for cash. And so they were looking like, what assets could we sell? So at that time, Bear was so popular. Bear was co-owned by the Jim Henson Company because remember, it was part of that deal.
Mm.
So then the Germans said, okay, we'll sell you Bear. And so, to get some like cash, get some money for it. And at that time, Michael Eisner was still in charge of the Walt Disney Company. And Michael Eisner had been very good friends with Jim and had facilitated a deal to buy the Muppets. So Eisner heard about this and he said he approved the deal to buy Bear if they throw in the Muppets as well. So they really got a 2-for-1 sale.
Wow.
So yes, so now Puppet Heap is in charge of taking care of maintaining and building the Muppets. And Bear and his friends are like, in their boxes, just stored away, standing by, maybe someday, maybe not.
Might return.
Maybe.
Amazing.
Right. Have this Crypt Keeper moment where the box is just like opens up. Pats off the dust.
Just this head Cunningham.
I smell nostalgia.
Now, Mr. MacNeal, you work with a massive hero of mine in John Oliver.
Oh, yes. John.
Last week, obsessed is probably the wrong word. No, or is it? I don't know. But anyway, I adore that man so much. But you obviously puppeteer on there. You've been Mr. Nutterbutter. You've been Totes My Goats, and amongst other wonderful characters that have been on that show. How did that happen? I'm so excited to ask you this question.
Yeah, it's like when John first started his show, like midway through that first season, I got a call from my friend, puppeteer Stephanie DeBruzzo. Stephanie was one of the original cast members in Avenue Q. And so she was contacted because they wanted to do this parody of a prison reform using puppets. So she asked, like, are you free this weekend? I was like, sure, I'll come in. So it was me, myself, Stephanie, and James Voital. And so they had never done this. I mean, this was the first season, and it was halfway through. And so this was new for John. So John came in that Saturday and like read through the script with us and saw the puppets, and we just started bantering with him, and he loved it. And so the next day we taped in front of a live audience. We did a run through with him, and there was like one line I thought I would use, but I thought, no, I'm going to wait until we're actually like doing it. And so the actual thing happens where John walks over, and this is kind of like this kind of Sesame-ish kind of set, and the puppets are there, and there's like, I'm like this monster character, and Stephanie and James are these kid characters, and then there's another puppeteer who's like this alligator kind of character, and he says something, and John says, all right, calm down, Mr. Alligator. And he's like, it's like, alligator, I'm a crocodile. And during the course of the rehearsal, he gets offended that, you think we all look alike.
Yeah.
So before he gets, it's not an alligator, I'm a crocodile. And before he says anything else, my character goes, "Oh Jesus, here we go." and John, like you can see on the tape, he's trying suddenly not to laugh because he's heard me say this. So he's like, here's like, like doing this with his mouth, trying not to burst out laughing. And that was always the thing. Like ever since then, like during the run-throughs, John never sees these things. So my goal is always to make him laugh. And like I did, like the first time I did Mr. Nutter Butter because he had never seen it except for before the run-through. So I came out fully dressed. And I was able to, like, with my free hand inside, because he's sitting on my head like a helmet inside.
Yeah.
But my free hand, I could make his mouth open and close. But closed, then I could actually, like, jerk the head around, like the way a squirrel would.
Yeah.
And I started doing with John, and he couldn't talk. He was laughing so hard. He was just, like, laughing. He couldn't stop. And so, actually, somebody on Twitter complimented my movement, saying like, did I research squirrel movements? I was like, no.
You nailed it though. You absolutely nailed it.
But yeah, so it's always the goal to make John laugh with these things. So yeah, but he's great. And he's as nice as you think he is. He's so easygoing. He's so funny. He's so smart. But he really also, in this he did I think it was back in like March or so, in Vulture magazine, he did an interview with him. And he's talking about the mascots and all that. And he really has a true appreciation for puppeteers and what we go through, and says like people think it's so easy to do, and it's not, because he's worked with me, he's worked with the puppeteers on Sesame Street, so he really has seen like what it takes. There was like one bit where it was talking about, I forgot what it was, but it was like for some reason it had to be a seagull. And the seagull has to like pop up like midway through the report and then pops up again at the end. So, but it's not like you can just stop and like load me in. So pretty much before, like once everybody's settling in the audience, I come out and like seagulls like in like a little bag, and I just like everything's set up for me with the monitor, and I just lay down on the floor, and I'm just like laying there, and then John does his little introduction. He answers questions. I'm still laying on the floor under the desk. And then he comes in, he looks down and says, "I know." And I'm like, and so for the bulk of the show, I'm looking at John's socks and just like waiting until it's time for me to do my bit. And just laying there, waiting.
Oh.
And then once the show was done, he said, "Thank you." And then that's when he got up, and then he introduced me, and I pulled myself up and waved and all that. But like, yeah, it's so funny. It's so ridiculous. I call it like, if it's like 60 Minutes meets Monty Python. It's because it's really informative and educational.
Oh, yes.
But then it's so ridiculous.
I just love the way it's. I mean, I'm sorry to like refer to him, but like, and obviously this is your interview, but like, I love the way his mind works.
No, it's great. Yeah, and he really appreciates like what we could do to help enhance that. And we just did this thing with about the vaccination, and it was the whole thing about how you can't convince somebody. Like, with like, doing a song or doing some like little stupid mascot. I mean, like, what were you thinking we were going to do? Like, get a giant cicada?
Vaccine cicada, yes.
And of course, that's me. And just like shuffling in the back. And John doesn't notice me at all. But again, during the run through, I'd never seen it. And so during the run through, it's like I'm shuffling in the back. And he's trying not to laugh, and I'm doing all these little like movements, and he's trying, and during the run through, he just starts laughing because it's so stupid. But,
what's it like being in the void?
The void is very cozy. It's it's very white, it's very cozy. I don't know for certain, but I think before the end of the season, we'll be going back into the studio because more people are. Well, this past week, Stephen Colbert went back into the studio, and so Saturday Night Live, when I did the Muppet Show bit, it was like 75% full of audience, and then the next week was the season finale, and that's when they had full capacity again. So it's starting to get back there. So I can't don't swear by me, but okay. I'm pretty sure before the end of the season, John will be back in the studio, and you'll have a studio audience in there again. So
was it quite nice back in front of the studio audience then when you did?
Oh yeah, it's like, I mean, he's done a really good. Not everybody could pull off like, talking to the screen, because some of them are so dependent upon audience reaction, and it doesn't work. Like, with Jimmy Fallon and James Corden, it's like no, no. But for John, he really is like talking to you, because that's, even when he has an audience, he's still talking to you at home. So it's still continued that way as well. So he was able to really make it work. But I'm sure he's looking forward to getting back in front of an audience too, and have their, because there's nothing like having the audience like react to something, and they just do like the most, like the bigger and the dumber it is, the audience just loves it.
We were just talking then about some of the characters you've done, like on the show. How do you find out what you're doing? Are you pre-warned, or do you walk in, see the suit, question everything about your life? And
it's like, what happened? Yeah, I mean, they do. Sometimes it would be before the pandemic. It was like last minute. Like I would literally get a call sometimes the day before. It's like, no, can you come in tomorrow? Can you come in this weekend? It's just like, sure. Like, what am I doing? But with this past season so far, they've let me know like kind of like 2 weeks in advance. We're thinking of doing this, because then I have to get a COVID test. It has to pass, and then I get the green light to go to the void and be with John. But before that, it was just like sometimes very last minute, and they would just like throw things together. And Bob Flanagan would often have to like build something at like the last minute. So that's how creations like Mr. Nutter Butter came about, because there's like the last minute. Like the first time I put them on, I could still smell the barge glue inside drying, because it was that quick.
Wow.
You had to make it like and have it delivered. So yeah. So, but it really is the whims of the writers and John. So it's like, I have like often go in like, what is it this time? And then it's like,
I just have this image in my head of your wife, like, you're cooking dinner or something, then you get the call, you're like, you just rush out and go, sorry, no, back in a minute. Like, okay.
See ya.
It's just, yeah.
someone needs you to dress up as a cicada. Bye.
Yeah, a couple of times I've taken my son, and he's loved craft service there. They used to have the best craft service. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to coming back, is craft service, because right now it's just like, it's so sad going into somebody's production's like this is not craft service. No. This is like a badly catered school lunch. This is like, it's like little boxes and all that. This is not, I'm waiting for like, the troughs of candy and like, the little tarts and cookies. So I'm waiting for that to come back. So fingers crossed.
So now, before we start wrapping up, I wanted to ask you about your books. So you've done 10-minute puppets and Bucks.
Yes.
So I love the idea of these books. They are amazing. I fully intend to get them when I can for my daughter, because I think we could have some great fun with these. But what made you want to do these books?
Oh, that was my wife again, Susan MacNeal, author of the Maggie Hope Mysteries.
I think I've heard that mentioned.
July 6th. Yes, it is. Like Amazon UK. It was her idea, and she said, like, you know how to be a puppeteer, and you know how to be a dad. Why don't you put them together and show people how easy and simple, making puppets can be? But she said, make it for people like me. I am not crafty. It's like, you are not married to Martha Stewart. And so I would come up with these little things, and then I would like show them to her, and she would like go through and like make little notes. And then it got to the point where she would just like glance at it, and it's like simpler, like too many steps, simpler. And so that's how I came about. Like, that's her idea. And then also my son too, because especially with Box, he would just ask me like to make stuff for him. Like one time when he was little, he said, "Dad, could you make me a pretend fireplace?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "For my pretend fire." Oh, of course. Sure, that makes sense. So I did.
Well, it's better than playing with real fire, son.
Exactly. I would not be good with the cardboard, so thank you, son.
Such a genius idea, with all the toilet roll paper holding the cardboard out of it, because I was never very creative myself. It's always got like these art books. I'm like, no idea. This is like fall apart or whatever. So it's genius. And with the 10-minute puppet thing, where you put the eyes and the tongues and stuff in the back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because like you can cut them out of the book, but you can also go to my website, noelmacneal.com, and you can download a lot of like the eyes and some of the simpler paper puppets. You can just download them still. So making it available for everybody. Quick and easy.
Beautiful.
I love that. I really do love that. I think it's amazing. Because, it's like you said, this stuff's for kids at the end of the day. And
exactly.
the younger you get them into it,
Because like 10-minute puppets, I designed it so that kids and their families like could grow with it. So that's why the early puppets are just like finger puppets. Like you take a washable marker and you just like put like, dots and a smile on your finger, like, for like, where's Thumbkin, that kind of thing. Like that's a puppet. And he just keeps going more. And then there are these little side things about, if you have more time, you can do this and you can be a little more elaborate. And then throughout it, I asked my puppeteering friends for advice to share with people. So about voice characterization or staging or writing or just like puppet experiences. So I asked like, Frank Oz and Fran Brill from Sesame Street and John Tartaglia from Avenue Q. And the introduction's written by Jerry Nelson from the Muppets. And so I was like, I'm just so proud that they actually did that for me. So it's a really great book. So you can get it on Amazon, I think still.
As well as your wife's book at the same time.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes. After you've ordered the Hollywood Spy, July 6th. Noel MacNeal. Then go over and see if there's a copy of 10-minute puppets left.
Incredible. Tom, have you got any more questions?
Yes, I've got one left. So you're doing now something now called the Show Me Show.
Yes.
Which is aimed at kids with autism and special needs. I think that is the most beautiful thing ever. It's really I watched the little clip on YouTube before. What made you decide to aim it directly at kids, with special needs?
Because I got so many fan emails from parents of just kids with autism and special needs, thanking them for Bear and how some of them still like watch the show on DVD or VHS or sometimes now on YouTube. And I realized there's not a show like that on right now, and that the networks aren't going to do something like that anytime soon. Because I remember years ago, I went to one of the major kids networks here in these States, and I had this idea for like a music show with puppets and a human host, and even had like little figures and like the map of the islands and sample song that my friend was going to be the host like wrote. And it was just, I realized that this was not working. It got to the point where it was like watching the last 45 minutes of Titanic. It was just depressing after a while because this person was just not responding. And so I finally asked her, it's like, what is it you really want? And she said, Noel, I'm going to be honest. If you can come up with an inexpensive 3D, even 2D animated show, where during the course of the adventures, the characters have to collect items that we can then translate into merchandise the kids have to buy, that is what we want.
Wow.
Welcome to children's television, everybody.
Fuck. Okay.
So then that's where it's like, okay, I'm going to try and do this myself. So I've been developing it, and hopefully someday it will be actually a full-fledged series. So
fingers crossed.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Until then, it's on YouTube, so you can like tune in. And I have occasionally friends of mine who can contribute to it.
That's awesome. Amazing. It's such an man, I love you. I just love it. You've dedicated pretty much your entire life to putting smiles on kids' faces, and that's incredible.
Thanks. It's like I've had fun so far. So like, knock on wood, I'll keep doing it.
Plus, it's just been delightful for me because, like I say, like you said earlier, your voice is Bear's, and it's like I've been having this conversation with Bear, and I'm loving life. Before we get out of it, we like to play a little game with our guests, if you're more than willing.
Sure.
It's called the quick fire round. We literally ask you like 5 questions, and you answer them as quickly as you can. It's very simple.
All right.
First one.
Yes.
Favorite pizza topping?
Oh, pepperoni.
But the amount of times we've had that answer, it's
a strong choice.
It's a very strong choice. Your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, Glory Days by Bruce Springsteen. Says a lot right there, doesn't it?
If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, wow. I think the ability to like lift things like mentally, like telekinesis, I guess. Just like to lift things up and just like have it float over, that kind of thing.
Make puppeteering so much easier as well.
I know, exactly. I'm lazy now, so it's just like, like, can I just sit here comfortably with the little thing? Puppeteer from over here. Just like, look at it going. Isn't that great? That's awesome. Buy the merchandise, kids.
Who would play you in the movie of your life?
Oh, let's see. Oh, there's let's see. Well, what's his name? He was in I think Rami Malek. If we were doing like young Noel, he kind of looks like me.
That's a strong choice.
See that, yeah.
It's like if you could do Freddie Mercury, he can do a Dolly Wiggler from the stage. So it's like
Dolly Wiggler.
That's what Jim called us. Like, we wiggle dolls.
So good.
That's incredible. That's ruined puppeteering for me forever. It's just going to be Dolly Wigglers now.
Dolly Wigglers. But professional Dolly Wigglers. That's the difference.
Yeah, let's get it right at least.
And last one before we let you get out of here, a piece of advice you would give to a younger version of yourself.
Oh. Just keep doing what you're doing, because it's all going to work out. You might not think so, but it really, really is.
It really does. For
God's sake, have fun.
Always.
Oh.
Yes, exactly.
No, this has been...
It's even something I tell myself now. When I wake up, it's like, just keep doing what you're doing. It's all going to work out. And for God's sake, have fun.
No, this has been incredible. I've had so much fun talking to you.
Thanks. I've been having a great time with you guys too.
I appreciate this so much. Is there any plugs, social medias, anything you want people who listen to this to check out?
Like I said, I'm on the TikTok and Cameo. I'm on Instagram. The Show Me Show's on YouTube. And then my Noel's Book Nook, you can listen to on Apple Podcast and Google Podcast and Spotify and Anchor. And yeah, it's like pretty much it. it's like trying not to be too social media, but yeah, between TikTok, Cameo, and Instagram, that's pretty good.
Incredible. No, it's been so much fun. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you guys for inviting me. I hope you have a great summer. Have a safe summer.
You too. Thank you so much.
Everybody out there, stay safe. And when I get to the UK, guys, first round's on me.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I would love that. I'm all over that. Seriously, Noel, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. We really appreciate it.
Sure,
Have a wonderful rest of day. Enjoy yourself. Take it easy. And we'll see you soon.
Indeed.
Cheers.
Because we're...
Hi, I'm Frank Guglielmelli, and I'm the narrator for some wonderful audio dramas from Siscast, like Marty and Mars, Bounty Hunters, and a great part in Val Toby, with much more to come. You can find these programs on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. Or head over to our website, www.siscast.com. We are excited to announce that we are now affiliated with the Chronicles of Podcast with Tom and Jamie.